That's the second biggest monkey head I've ever seen.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
The definition of insanity.
Hello and welcome to episode 76 of PvA Radio. I'm your host, Luke Croft, and joining me, as always, freelance gaming journalist Cody Mellokline. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing wonderful, man. I'm so ready for this episode. I'm so excited. It's going to be totally...
We got beefy conversations.
Spicy.
Full of beef.
Also, joining me, David S. Pumpkin himself, Larry Hunt.
I forgot his catchphrase. This is awkward and embarrassing. Never heard of the guy. What's that joke about?
I'll scare the hell out of you.
Any questions?
Wait, he does say I'll scare the hell out of you, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Except in the children's animation they made.
Oh, well.
I think he says heck.
Oh, I'm going to tell them, I'm going to just say this right now. They're cowards. You got to be true to the art you create, you know? Like,
have you ever watched the animated David S. Pumpkin special?
No, I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's
fantastic.
You introduced me to it at my home, at my abode.
Yeah. If you put the stupid raisins you get trick-or-treating in your pumpkin at night, David S. Pumpkins comes and turns them into candy.
That's lore I can definitely get behind. Also, Big Boy Roy in the chat. Welcome. Hello. Before we jump into it, this is PvA Radio. We get together each and every week on Wednesday nights over here on twitch.tv/PvA Radio, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific, to talk about the biggest stories in gaming news. Nay, all stories in gaming news that matter. All right? If we don't talk about it here, it's not worth knowing. It's not worth talking about.
It didn't even happen.
And maybe not just in gaming news, just in news in general. Like, we talk about the only news that matters. If you can't catch us live over here on Twitch, you can find us the next day on youtube.com/PvA Radio or podcast services everywhere. Wherever you're listening to us, thank you. Make sure that you hit the follow button so that you don't miss an episode. Leave us a comment, questions, reviews, anything like that, and we'll have Larry read it out in a giant 10-gallon hat. We'll order you a 10-gallon hat, Larry.
I mean, I can put the pumpkin on my head.
Is that the pumpkin that you wear as your costume?
Yeah.
It looks smaller than I remember.
Well, I mean, it's way back there.
Oh, it's some forced perspective shit.
Oh yeah, it kind of does look like it's sitting there, doesn't it?
It looks like it's like right next to you, and then your hand, like do your hand like that again. Hold on, let me make your screen bigger over here. That's crazy. Like you look like you're now green screened on it on your with
this is not a real pumpkin.
This is not a real house. I am in the middle of a road. All right, guys. Well, Stafidi in the chat as well. Welcome. If you, that's one of the benefits of watching us live, guys. If you watch us on twitch.tv/itishoagie, I think I said twitch.tv/PvA Radio earlier, but we like to interact with the chat, and tonight we're definitely going to have some conversations because we got some big stories to get to. And so let's just jump right into The Dive, which is our weekly segment where we take a deep dive into a single topic. And guys, we're 3 for 3 with The Dive, where we don't even have to have a conversation about what the story is going to be, because the story...
We came back at the right time.
We really did. The story is...
Did gaming news return with us?
That's true.
Correlation does equal causation.
The biggest story of the week is obviously Todd Howard having a 1,000 point achievement that only he can unlock. Let's jump.
All right.
No, obviously we're going to be talking about Microsoft's acquisition of Bethesda Softworks through their acquisition of their parent company, Zenimax. And we're taking parts of the story from Addie Robertson over here on The Verge. $7.5 billion in cash, cold hard cash. I like to think it was in briefcases.
An Xbox gamer score.
Yeah, 7.5 billion gamer score, baby.
Each briefcase only containing $1 million. So it's just a stack of briefcases full of stacks of money.
All right, so let's do the math real quick. If each briefcase only had $1 million, that would be 7,500 briefcases, right? Am I doing that math correctly?
You must be. because I'm bad at math.
Wild. Stafidi says that's a money move. It really is. So they acquired Zenimax. Zenimax is the parent company of Bethesda Softworks. Within this acquisition, they also gain all of the IP that's held by those studios as well. So I'm going to name some of these. You probably aren't familiar with most of them. Doom, Fallout, The Elder Scrolls, and then their upcoming game Starfield as well. Some details around the deal, again, at $7.5 billion in cash that's going over. The acquisition includes the studios that make up Bethesda Softworks. So we're talking Arcane and Machine Games, id Software, Tango Gameworks. They did note that there are 2 games that are currently in the works that have exclusivity deals with the PlayStation 5 that they're going to maintain. That's Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo from Arcane and Tango Gameworks, respectively. So I'm just going to kind of open this up to you guys. When you woke up at whatever time you woke up and saw this story, what were your thoughts? Well, I guess I was the only one that woke up and saw this story because it broke at 6 that morning, but you guys were probably up at 9 o'clock.
This was crazy. The first thing I did was drop into our PvA Discord and be like, guys, this is huge. Have you seen this? Just, I don't know. We can get into there's just a ton of implications about this, but this is a huge deal. The Zenimax and all of those companies that you've listed underneath them, the games that they publish, these are huge games. For Microsoft to take on ownership of those IP, this, I don't know how much you want to get into the details on the ripples, but this is going to have a lot of ripples moving forward.
No, I definitely want to get. Well, let's get initial reactions first. Cody, what was your first thought when you saw the headline?
I was just gobsmacked. This is maybe the biggest news story in this industry in a long time. Not only because of the price tag, but because of the implications. I mean, this is when you think about, like, if you just want to think about the scope of it, like, think about what companies, or I guess used to have a presentation at E3. Microsoft and Bethesda are 2 of those. Microsoft basically just purchased another company that had its own dedicated press conference at E3 for a price tag that's more than Disney paid for Lucasfilm, which is absurd. So this is huge, and we'll talk about the implications of it, but they are pretty, not only for this specific deal, but for Microsoft's strategy and for Sony's strategy, perhaps in response. This is massive. And obviously this has been in the works for a long time. I know some rumors had kind of been circling about it, but the fact that they were able to just drop it, notably the day before pre-orders went live for Series X, is pretty huge.
Yeah, I think the first thing that caught my attention when this deal came through, Cody, you already mentioned this in like comparison to the acquisition of Lucasfilms and stuff, but the $7.5 billion, is staggering to me. Like, not only just the implications of how much power Microsoft has as like just a purchasing entity in this space, but also just to think about how far the gaming industry has evolved, that like you see $7.5 billion and nobody's reaction to this was like, oh my gosh, they overpaid for Bethesda. Why would they pay so much money for Bethesda? But like, you look at $7.5 billion in cash and think, oh yeah, that makes sense. You know, like, had this deal happened 8 years ago, 10 years ago, and we heard $7.5 billion, we'd be like, holy shit, no, you don't need to be paying $7.5 billion for any gaming company. And I guess this is maybe the biggest merger of companies since, Activision Blizzard? What other big ones?
To think of what other comparable deals their acquisitions have been made, and I couldn't think of them. I know Microsoft paid a pretty penny for Mojang and for Minecraft, but this dwarfs that completely. Historically, I think Activision, Blizzard, Square Enix, those are the big ones that come to mind.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of them approached the $7.5 billion.
No, what was Mojang, like 2.5 billion?
Yeah, I think around 2.
So yeah, well, let's jump into some of the implications of this, guys. Like, so I think the first obvious question that we get when we look at this is like, okay, well, what does this mean for future Bethesda titles like Starfield, like The Elder Scrolls 6, like whatever the next Fallout is going to be? Because the only confirmation that we have is that Microsoft is going to honor those 2 timed exclusive deals, which is funny that they put it like that. I don't think you have much of a choice but to honor contractually agreed upon things. Yeah. But that future games will come to non-Xbox platforms on a quote case by case basis, unquote. So I guess my question to you is, what do you think is going to happen with Bethesda IP moving forward in terms of exclusivity?
I saw a lot of online discussion where a lot of people don't feel like anything's going to change. And that's just really naive. Like, this was a huge acquisition. Microsoft has been lacking in console exclusives for a while. And I don't think all these games are going to stick to Xbox exclusive games. But I think that we're definitely going to see a lot of at least timed exclusivity. We're not going to see all these things releasing on all the consoles all at once moving forward. That's just unrealistic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a big play for Game Pass because all of those games, I mean, other than the ones that have timed exclusivity for PlayStation, will come to Game Pass day and date of the release. Which means even if they do release on PlayStation, like the $70 price tag for that game, if you own a PlayStation, versus that being bundled into Game Pass, is a huge incentive for Bethesda fans to enter the ecosystem if they're not already in it. But I do think the phrasing of that quote from Phil Spencer is interesting. Other consoles on a case by case basis. It does imply that there could be some crossover, some still ongoing crossover, but I think we will certainly see a little bit more restrictive, like, spread of Bethesda's property across gaming.
Yeah,
it's too big of a gem not to hold on to, I guess, is the way I'm thinking about it.
And it's not just the IP that's too big a gem. Like, I just don't feel like you pay $7.5 billion for something for nothing to change.
Yeah, that's the jewel in your crown.
Yeah, and so I think naive is a good word that you use there, Larry, but I just think it's a little wishful thinking to think that nothing is going to change. And the argument I kept seeing, and let me see if you guys agree with my thinking here. Like, I saw a lot of people that were saying stuff like, Xbox doesn't care about hardware sales. All they care about is software sales. And I'm like, that's not true. Like, yeah, they don't care about hardware sales, but I would say it's not because they care about software sales. They care about subscriptions, a number of subscriptions. Like, and if the goal is just, well, we want to be able to put Bethesda games into Game Pass to attract people to the Game Pass service, but not change anything else about the gaming landscape, then why would they not have just approached this the way that they approach deals with, like, EA or somebody? And it cost them way less than $7.5 billion. I think the play for Microsoft is going to be like, hey, for the first year of these games, Fallout, The Elder Scrolls, Starfield, all these games are going to be exclusive to Xbox Game Pass, not Xbox as a console, but anywhere where Game Pass is available. And obviously you can buy the game outright on your Xbox console, but it doesn't benefit it. I don't want to say that. There is a benefit for Microsoft selling games that they publish onto PlayStation hardware. I mean, you do get a cut of whatever those sales are, but I think the benefit is far outweighed by the benefit you receive from saying, hey, you want to come play all of these new Bethesda games? Come sign up for Xbox Game Pass and play it on your PC or any of these other platforms where Game Pass is available.
Yep.
Yeah, I just can't see. I have seen that argument too, Luke, and I agree largely with what you said. I just can't see them spending $7.5 billion and then maintaining the status quo.
Yeah,
that just makes zero sense to me. And I think anyone who's arguing that they're not interested in selling hardware, like, sure, you can, yeah, as you said, you can play Game Pass on PC, but the Xbox is still the portal through which you largely access their subscription service. So they do need people to be purchasing their hardware.
And hardware may not be the most important thing, but you can't say, I know they just announced 2 new variations of a new console.
Yeah.
But they don't want to sell any of them. I don't track with that at all.
Yeah, the logic of that argument doesn't make a lot of sense. And look, I know that those things are like hyperbole to say that Xbox doesn't care about console. Like, I know nobody believes that. Most people don't believe that. Like, they obviously care about it, but it is a priority thing. And I think what Xbox cares most about is people playing within their ecosystem. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be on an Xbox Series X, but hey, if you can play these games on your Xbox One X or on Game Pass on PC, somewhere like that, like, that's what's important to them. And I don't think that it benefits them very much. The other thing that we're assuming here, and I think that this is something that that people tend to overlook, is like, we're assuming that the next console generation is going to play out the same way this console generation does in terms of sales, to be like, well, it would benefit Microsoft to have that giant Sony player base purchasing their games as well. Yeah. Viewing it as like a 1-to-1 comparison of how the PS4 to Xbox One consoles have sold. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be a negligible audience regardless, but what I'm saying is, like, the people who are the company who is ahead in any given generation is always more closed off to collaboration with the competitors. We saw this generation with PlayStation, and they're just total opposition to crossplay for a long time. They were hopping on the caboose of that train, right, as it was like leaving the station. They weren't excited to get on it.
And I don't know that they hopped on so much as a rope just snagged them on the way and they were dragged along behind the train.
Yeah, that's a good point too. So, like, what's to say that Xbox doesn't start to outsell consoles from the PS5 and start to play just as defensively in terms of how walled off they want their garden to be?
Yeah. What do you think this means for Sony? What do you think this move means for Sony overall?
I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, if you see this as Sony, you feel like you have to respond, and I don't know what that response is. Like, there's nothing Bethesda-like that's out there, you know?
Yeah.
And PlayStation and Sony as a brand does not have the purchasing power that Microsoft has either. So there's no way they can financially, monetarily, like, acquisition-wise respond to this. But then there's the other part of me that's like, by comparison, if this was the other way around, Sony is so heads down on their own strategy of these things that it's not that they don't care about it, right? But it's just like, well, we've mapped out our course. We know what our identity is. Our identity is in these really strong things that there's no question about their exclusivity. You're only going to be able to play the next Last of Us here. You're only going to be able to play the next Spider-Man here. You're only going to be able to play the next Horizon here, like, until some of those games inevitably come to PC. So I don't know if it changes anything for PlayStation, to be honest, because I also don't think that people are going out and buying PlayStation 4 to play Fallout 4, like, even when it just newly released. Like, Bethesda games aren't console sellers either.
Yeah, although it is in their new subscription service. Fallout 4 is included in the little Sony collection. Yeah.
Yeah. Notice it's not Fallout 76.
Yes, yeah, notably. Yeah, I think I can only imagine how long this deal was in the works, so it's not like anything that Sony would do in response. It's not like they can just quickly turn around and do it.
Yeah.
Deals like these take so long, and there's so many moving parts of them. I also think that you're right. Sony's head is like, especially right now at where we are in terms of like the next gen console launch coming up, and them kind of probably starting to roll out more information about games coming up. It's their head is down in terms of like just determining their strategy and just making sure they communicate to people what their vision for PlayStation 5 is. I think that's probably more important for them now than anything else.
I have not checked the math on this, so take this with a grain of salt. But I saw a tweet today about how just speaking to Microsoft's purchasing power, that this acquisition was the equivalent of only 2 months of Microsoft's profits. Like, they just saved up for a couple months and acquired the Zenimax.
Yeah, which is an interesting note, just as far as like the magnitude of Microsoft's purchasing power. Not saying that that's how acquisitions work, guys. All right, I can already read your comments. Look at these ignorant fools thinking that Microsoft just saved up for 2 months.
Yeah, everybody became a financial analyst when this announcement came out. I noticed on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, people pretending to be experts on things that they don't understand on Twitter.
I know. It happened so fast. Everybody got a PhD.
I'm surprised I didn't see breaking news stories about that being the first time in history that's ever happened. Jordan Gerblick over on Games Radar put out this article about how Bethesda is going to be running as a, quote, semi-independent, end quote, publisher. So Bethesda as a company is going to continue to... Bethesda as a publisher is going to continue to operate somewhat autonomously within their as publishers. But I'm going to tell you this right now. That word means nothing. Spencer notes that, quote, it's about the culture of those teams. They're not about becoming us, end quote. And that's par for the course for all the way that Spencer's talked about all these acquisitions. Like, they're not acquiring these different studios so that they like take on Xbox's identity. They're being purchased because of the identity that they have. So what do you guys think it means for them to run semi-independently?
I think that is purely just speaking to the culture of the companies. We're not going to be micromanaging them, but like you said, it just doesn't mean a lot.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Microsoft's still calling the shots on which console's getting another remake of Skyrim next.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, this just reads as kind of like executive marketing gobbledygook to reaffirm fans of what they can expect from Bethesda moving forward.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm going to be honest, maybe Bethesda could use a little micromanaging, but that probably wasn't that wasn't part of their deal.
Stafidi says, does it mean games have to be finished to be released? Look, man. In the modern days of video games, it's not just Bethesda either. You know, like it's
look
just
at Avengers.
It's just the way the games are anymore. You know, like when you can deliver patches, it's easy to.
It's just a beta.
Just see things as works in progress. The thing I think I'm learning just from this discussion that we're having is just how much like all of this is implications and speculation as to what this means. Like, it's not in Xbox's benefit to corner themselves into anything by making any promises about where and when specific games are going to be available to certain people, because the landscape of gaming is going to look so different 12 months from now than it does now, and most of the biggest IP that Bethesda has in the works is still years off. Like, we're not close to Starfield, we're not close to Elder Scrolls 6 coming out. Like, so why would Phil Spencer or anybody at Microsoft come out and be like, oh well, we're committing to bringing these, allowing all different platforms to have this, when they don't know what the world's going to look like in a year? Hell, we may not even be here.
Yeah.
You know. So, any closing thoughts on any of that?
I did want to briefly talk about kind of what we think, our opinions of what this means for the industry as a whole, because I think the conversation around acquisitions, and especially the speed with which Microsoft has acquired the amount of studios it's acquired, is certainly worth talking about. I know the conversation around IP and kind of creators being kind of helmed under the control of about 4 companies in the film industry has been an ongoing conversation, especially with everything that Disney has been doing. The concept of monopolies and whether or not it's creatively beneficial for the industry at large, I think is certainly also something worth talking about in this case as well. Obviously, Microsoft has been pretty open, like you said, about kind of letting the studios do what they will, but I think there is something to be said about of the many studios that have control over their creations, many of those more and more increasingly falling under the banner of basically two companies. And so I was just kind of curious about what your thoughts on that are. It might not be a one-to-one with the film example, but I think it's certainly something that's still worth talking about.
I think the film example is actually a really important one, because what has, and I think we've talked about this before, because this matters to me. The film industry has gotten to where it is big blockbusters and small indies and nothing. There is no mid-tier release anymore, for the most part, and a lot of people want to complain about the companies doing this, Disney acquiring everything, Disney blowing everything bigger and bigger and bigger. But Disney is doing this in response to the pressure of the consumer. They only make big blockbuster movies because that's all that makes money anymore. And I feel like gaming has kind of gone the same way. And it's tied to the pricing of games, I think. We've gotten to where we have some big thoughts about what makes a game worth $60, and a mid-tier game does not cut it for the average consumer. We want massive gaming experiences. And so I think this is a bubble that pops eventually, and that there will be fallout from it one day, and not necessarily Fallout 5 or 6 or whatever we're up to.
Jesus.
I'm sorry. I'm a father.
I'd kick you out of this call if it wouldn't break our overlays.
But in all seriousness, I think that this has big problems down the road. I think that eventually we're going to see it in the film industry first. There are going to be enough big losses that this sort of bursts. But for now, I think we're just going to keep seeing this problem. I don't even know if it's a problem. We're going to see this behavior increase and swell and grow. And if you don't like it, then maybe start being comfortable paying $60 for a game that's not 40 hours long.
See, this is the kind of thing I love, because I agree with you guys from an ideological standpoint. I think it's a bad thing if 2 companies are just hoarding up everything in the gaming space. But I disagree with you guys' perception of where the industry is in terms of where IP exists and where fan engagement is, because I think that right now there's a pretty healthy ground in the middle of these spaces between total indie games and AAA experiences. I work for a company that is an indie publisher who finds experiences that have more creative headroom to take the step to the next level, and helps to finance those games to get to that level. And we're not alone in our space. You've got Devolver, who's doing similar things. You've got Team 17, who's doing similar. There's plenty of other publishers like us that exist that are trying to identify those people who need additional resources to get their vision to the finish line. And I mean, what's been the most talked about game this year is Fall Guys. Fall Guys dominated the conversation for a solid month of time after its release, and Fall Guys is by no means a AAA game. It's by no means.
I do think Fall Guys is the exception to the rule, though. Fall Guys Among Us also falls into this category too, even though that was made
2
years
ago.
But
yeah. Well, I'm pointing that out as the outlier just to demonstrate that there are plenty of companies that exist on the belief that there's room to be made up here. Like there's sales to be made in this space. Like you wouldn't have as many indie publishers like Modus or Devolver, like if there wasn't viability in that market. And these aren't just like guys who are kind of like treading water out in the middle of the ocean. Like these are companies that are thriving and able to identify that talent. But I also think these kinds of acquisitions also highlight the volatility of the industry, that like even a company like Bethesda sees an additional like sense of comfort in being able to be acquired by this. Like whereas, like you said, Cody, Bethesda is a pillar in the industry. They have their own E3 presence, like they have their own press conference. But for them to be able to look at this deal, and it's not just $7.5 billion of cold hard cash, but also the stability of being able to work under the umbrella of Microsoft. But I think that's also something that makes this industry unique from like the film industry is, and I'm not as connected in the film industry, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see a lot of like indie studios or like art house things that are like pulled in and acquired by the big boys to like Disney's going out and they're buying like Marvel movies and Star Wars, and like they're not going and buying indie properties.
Well, indie acquisition does happen. It's not Disney doing it. It's Netflix, it's Neon via Hulu. Companies are doing it and have found a niche there. That's why I said I don't think the comparison is 1-to-1, largely because I think the distribution channels for the film industry are still very limited. And I think the ability for developers to kind of find an avenue on their own is still out there. And so I don't think the fear that I'm expressing is not something that I think is like right around the corner. I don't know how many like $1 billion acquisitions Microsoft is going to be making in the next few years, or how many like major deals Sony or Nintendo is going to be making. But I think I don't think like the divide between indie and AAA is as stark as it is in the film industry. Like you said, they're Ninja Theory is a AA developer, and there are other developers who either are AA or somewhere between indie and AA.
Well, Ninja Theory.
Yeah.
Acquired by Microsoft.
Acquired by Microsoft. But I think there is it's an interesting conversation. Like, do they have there's an incentive for them to do something like this. As you said, there's job security in it, which is largely not the case in the industry. And it appears, at least from the outside looking in, that there is still a certain amount of creative control they retain. So is it all that bad to join up with a Microsoft? Is it all that bad for Microsoft to own all these properties if they still have the creative control that Microsoft claims they have?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a lot. I'm pointing out a lot of questions, mostly because I'm still undecided about this.
Well, I mean, there's still like the universal truth that absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yes,
like
I believe that to be the case.
And the more and more these studios are going to get acquired, the more we're going to start to hear stories of like creative stifling. But as long as you've got guys like I don't know Phil Spencer personally, even though he is a friend of the show. But he does seem to genuinely care about the creative integrity of the products that he puts out and the people that work under him. And like, I know that him getting it to an extent is a marketing ploy and like a front that's put on, but I think that who we see Phil Spencer present is at least how he's running his company. Like, not making any assumptions about the man himself, but I think that they get what players want and are and know that what players don't want is Bethesda to get acquired, so that Microsoft just milks them for all it's worth. Like, Bethesda's kind of done that to themselves already with some of their IP. So I don't have that fear, but I get your point, Cody. Like, the more and more we see this and the more that divide grows, I think the more worried I'll become. But for now, I see this, and this is a big fish swallowing a big fish, and so this isn't. I'm more concerned when I see guys like Ninja Theory get scooped up, and it's like, well, these are guys who are doing really cool things. Like Ninja Theory doesn't just have Hellblade. They were working on some cool stuff with like mental illness and some other like more experimental projects that I'm like, I don't want that sort of stuff to go by the wayside, which I don't think it is, but I'm more concerned about that kind of stuff. Like, okay, we've got more headroom to make Elder Scrolls, which was already going to be massive. Like, what's it really change?
Yeah, and with Bethesda, it's interesting because now Microsoft does have an interesting, like, diverse portfolio of studios under its banner. Like Bethesda is one of the biggest AAA studios out there, but they also have little indies. Then they have, like, as we were saying, kind of like in between, kind of Ninja Theory. And so they do have a very diverse portfolio of studios under their banner, which is not something I really can say for Sony. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Sony knows what it's doing with its studios. They also have smaller indie studios under their banner, but they're most known for kind of their prestige projects, and that's fine. That's what they do really well. And to have that along with everything else is great. And that diversity among like priorities for studios is an important thing, so that it doesn't become what we're all talking about here.
Yeah. Go ahead, Larry. You look like you're about to say something.
I was just going to say, Big Boy Roy said, I read an article today that Fall Guys is the largest PC game launched since Overwatch. Made $185 million in its first month.
That's nuts.
Yeah, wild.
Nuts.
And yes, it is an outlier in that sense, but it shows that there's like still viability in that. Like, what was the movie that won Best Film this year? Was it Parasite?
Parasite.
But like, okay, that was critically acclaimed, but like, how much did it pull in the box office?
It actually made a decent amount. I mean, it was acquired by Neon, which is associated with Hulu, so they gave them a decent chunk of change too.
Yeah. So, but it wasn't like the largest.
Oh no!
It wasn't the largest
like
film in the last 5 years.
Event.
Yeah. So it like. And I don't think we'll ever see, like, you're never going to see some indie film that's like the biggest grossing movie in the last 5 years. There's still space for that in gaming. And that's partly due to the way that games are monetized. But the other thing you mentioned, Cody, that I want to hit on before we move on completely, talking about how this affects Sony, you mentioned the word diversity, which is of the IP that's being acquired here. Yeah. And this goes beyond just the Bethesda acquisition into all of the acquisitions that Microsoft has made over the last couple of years. But the diversity of the portfolio that now is owned by Microsoft is wild. And one of the criticisms that's been levied against PlayStation and their quality exclusives is they all feel kind of samey. They're all like third person action linear games, dads. Like and so and there's power in the diversity of that portfolio that Microsoft has that I think could be leveraged in really clever marketing ways. And just in connecting with audiences that aren't interested in third-person over-the-shoulder action-adventure games. All right. Well, let's move on to The Slant, which is our weekly segment where we take the most interesting pieces of gaming news from the week and give our quick takes on them. Cody, I believe you have our first story here, so I'm going to hand it over to you.
I do. We're sticking with Xbox for a little bit because obviously that wasn't the only major kind of news that came out of this week in terms of Microsoft. They also opened pre-orders for the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S on Tuesday. And despite all the big talk that Microsoft had coming into this week after the debacle that was kind of Sony's pre-order launch, Microsoft had a date set. They told people when it was going to happen. And it turns out that did not stop things from getting out of hand pretty quickly. And I'm only speaking from personal experience. I did personally manage to secure a pre-order for a Series X. And this is taken from Polygon's reporting on this, but everybody was covering it. This is Patricia Hernandez writing. quote, likely knowing the specific time for pre-orders actually didn't help much. GameStop implemented a queue that asked customers to stay in line and not refresh the page. This seems to have been a clever ruse. Except after 30 minutes of waiting, I'm still staring at the same screen. It's better than being told I'm blocked, but not by much. Amazon won't even load, instead giving me error pages with dogs, which I will note is pretty great. And it basically spiraled out from there. Walmart pretty quickly sold out. Target had a number of issues with its pre-order function, and then some didn't even really like Best Buy didn't get its, basically held back from issuing orders for a long time. Basically every storefront, including Microsoft's own storefront, had issues and was bombarded. Which I say, yep. Yeah, this is basically what I anticipated happening. I got in like exactly at 11 a.m. when Eastern Standard Time when it was supposed to be happening, and still had issues. This is not a surprise given everything we talked about, I think, last week in terms of demand. It was a hellscape.
There's no way to get around this, right? Like,
no, there really is no way to avoid this happening, especially with everything else going on right now and people having a lot of time on their hands.
I guess the only way you could do this without it being total pandemonium is doing it like some shoe companies do, where you submit your email address and then they like raffle who is going to have the ability to pre-order, and if they don't fulfill it, they'll send out like another round of raffles. But at that point, you're making it really hard for retailers. Like, the problem with it is that there's no one system that's going to be universally applied across these things, and and PlayStation and Xbox need those physical retailers at this point to sell through these consoles.
My brother shared a great story with me yesterday where one person had snagged their Xbox Series X pre-order and was scalping it for $700 some, and in his image of his pre-order he left the reference number stuff in plain sight, so someone called and canceled his pre-order.
Larry, I'm disappointed in you.
What?
Because I shared that in your chat.
Did you?
Yep, it wasn't your brother. It was me, and it was the guy had it up for $1,500.
Oh,
I'm sorry, but you got to give credit where credit's due.
Well, I just want you to know that I think of you as a brother, and this is how you found out.
Now I feel bad. Yeah, I mean, this is like it's no shock, and the thing is like the people who. On the one hand, I get being frustrated about it, but on the other hand, it's like, sure. What did you expect? When you jump into these things and can't get it, like, there's a billion people on this planet that are trying to get to this one web page at one time. So
yeah. There's no version of reality where this doesn't happen, and if there is, I'd like to be in that reality. Maybe other things are going more smoothly too. I probably shouldn't be blown away by GameStop's choice in all this, but I am just, that is a move.
Telling people not to refresh.
Yeah. And the source code of the page basically will refresh the page every 30 seconds. So it's definitely a move to try to limit people getting in, but yeah. This was a mess, but it doesn't seem like anything else could.
I'll tell you what, this is a better mess than people like fucking trampling over each other trying to get into a store on midnight. So I'd rather it be an online mess than some of the messes we saw with like Xbox 360 and PS3 when it launched.
Sure,
I don't know if you guys remember the scenes of absolute pandemonium at some of those retailers at midnight. So
and at least
violence. Everybody knew when the mess would take place too.
Yeah,
there were rules agreed upon beforehand.
Yeah, I want to stick to the Xbox side of this. I'm skipping a story in our show notes. We'll come back to it, but because of all of this mess, it seems that customers are mistakenly purchasing the Xbox One X. So this is a story from Steve Watts over at GameSpot. Essentially, Amazon has the movers and shakers chart that shows like surges in sales, and at the time of the reporting for this, the Xbox One X X sales had surged by 431% on Amazon. That's not even the highest that it went. Somebody in my company Slack sent a screenshot, and it was like 768% higher. So basically, the theory is that people are trying to get the Xbox Series X and finding the Xbox One X is still available and purchasing that in confusion, believing that they're getting the next gen console. And this will not be the last story that we see like this. And the naming of these consoles from Xbox, like, we've already made the mistakes on this podcast calling them by the wrong names. Like, it's bound to happen, and it's bound to make a lot of people upset when they realize that they did not, in fact, secure a pre-order for the Xbox Series X.
Or more likely, a kid is going to get pissed off at their parent for buying the wrong console.
Yeah.
Like, I
got you the Xbox X.
I saw this story, and I actually went into my email to double check out of panic. Make sure I ordered the right console. I did order the right console, but like it's ridiculous. I noted, like, if you I can see how, like, if you're told by your kid, or if you were just told like pre-orders go live on the 22nd. Like, if I searched Xbox Series X, the landing page for the Series X wasn't up until that time, 11 a.m. Eastern kind of hit. Before that, if you typed in Xbox Series X, the Xbox One X does come up as the first option to purchase. I can totally see where the mistake would be made if you're just either not paying attention, or you're just kind of out of panic trying to secure something.
And in all seriousness, parents, I guarantee you, are not typing Series X. They're typing Xbox X. That's what's happening.
And it's not just parents, man. If I learned anything in my time at GameStop, it is that people find the dumbest ways to shorten the things that they're asking for. You know, like people would come in and be like, "Hey, can I get 2K on P4?" Like, those words don't make sense to me, but yes, I guess. I guarantee you, it's not just. I would like to think that some of these are scalpers who don't necessarily know the products, who are going in and thinking that they're getting the latest thing and purchasing it. Because look, not all scalpers are just like brilliant people who are trying to take advantage of an opportunity. There's guys like, I mean, I went to church with a dude who'd always be like, "Hey man, I don't know anything about games, but I see that the people are like buying this thing and selling it for like $300 more than what they paid for it. Should I get in on that?" And I was like, "No, you shouldn't." But you know, guys that don't know anything about video games trying to make these purchases and making mistakes. So I hope that we get to see a lot of scalpers post pictures of their unopened Xbox X's, and they're just Xbox One X's.
Yep.
Or maybe those people, maybe all 700% of those people just realized that the Xbox One X was getting discontinued and wanted to get it on the day of the Series X's launch.
Microsoft don't care; they're getting money.
That's right.
And as much as I'm making fun of people for like shortening it and getting it wrong, like, this was another mess that you saw a mile out. Like, to name both of these consoles so similarly to the last two consoles, like this was happening.
Yeah, you're keeping the toothpaste and the the hemorrhoid cream right next to each other on the counter with this one. So, all right, next story. Let's keep on the pre-order debacle train here. The PS5 was a disaster as well. We talked about that last week, and PlayStation actually issued an apology for how much of a mess it was, posting the following tweet on September 19th. They said, "Let's be honest, PS5 pre-orders could have been a lot smoother. We truly apologize for that. Over the next few days, we will release more PS5 consoles for pre-orders. Retailers will share more details, and more PS5s will be available through the end of the year." No one's getting this right, guys. Surprise, surprise. No one's getting the two pieces of hottest technology coming out this year, the pre-orders for it, right.
I mean, I think it's like Cody said in the last story, though. Like, there's no way to do this well. I mean, anyone who's gone to college and had to register for classes online knows that when everyone tries to cram through the same digital door, it just doesn't work well.
Yeah, well, the mess is going to become even bigger when they start to ship these consoles out. And because PlayStation already is sending out emails telling people when their estimated delivery time is, and there's reports that some of them are as late as December, so several weeks after the console's supposed to launch. And the shit's really going to hit the fan when people don't have their, $500 box on the day it's supposed to come out.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's move on. Next story on the list: Xbox. The Xbox console streaming is now available to all Android users. This is a story over on Engadget. So they've taken this out of beta. They've gotten rid of the independent app, and they've just folded this now into the Xbox app itself. And you no longer have to be an insider, so you can now stream your Xbox directly to your phone if you are an Android user. Larry, have you tried this yet?
I tried to get it going, but you have to have a Bluetooth controller, and that's not something that I have actually. So, but firing it up is really cool. What it does is it turns on your console, and it's basically just mirroring your screen to your phone or tablet or whatever you're using. I'm looking at my Xbox dashboard and pick which game I want to play, and anything downloaded, I can play it. And as long as your Xbox is connected to the internet, your phone's or tablet or whatever is connected to the internet, you're good to go, even if you're not on the same wireless connection. So that's neat.
Yeah. It's such a shame that this stuff is coming out right now when, like, people, like, I'd use the shit out of this if I, wasn't within an arm's reach of all of my gaming hardware at any given time, because I don't leave the house because I don't want to get the coronavirus and I work from home.
Or if your Xbox worked.
Or if my Xbox worked. But I'm saying at large, these things would be more impactful if there wasn't such a high percentage of the population that's still stuck inside, taking things seriously.
Different. This is not xCloud.
No, this is console streaming. Yeah. So this is mirroring your Xbox, whereas xCloud, it's all hosted in the cloud, and you can play things even if they aren't installed on your box itself. So
I will not be doing this anytime soon.
But you also have an iPhone, right?
That's what I'm saying.
So you can't, as we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago. Time is
sad.
Time is a construct. Next story on the list is from GameIndustry.biz, reporting from Marie D'Alessandri. A French consumer protection agency is suing Nintendo for planned obsolescence of the Joy-Con drift. You guys can figure out what this story is all about. We've been talking for years at this point about Joy-Con drift, joystick drift. And so UFC, not the fighting organization, but
they had it. They're going to go fight everybody at Nintendo.
UFC K Choisir announced that it is suing Nintendo for planned obsolescence and anti-consumer practices. So they said, quote, "The nature of the failure, how frequently it occurs for players, the limited lifespan of the products, and the manufacturer's inertia despite being informed of the defect, these are all characteristics of planned obsolescence practices at Nintendo," end quote. And that is what they are going after.
Mm-hmm. And the article notes as well that between the beginning of this problem and now, Nintendo has actually updated the Joy-Cons, but they took no steps to address this known issue, which that's part of that. And I'm kind of like, well, good. Nintendo kind of needs a kick in the rear on this one. Like, get your crap together. I've got another Nintendo controller going bad right now, and it ticks me off because I don't know if it still works this way, but the first time I had to send it in, I had to send the whole Switch in. I couldn't just send the Joy-Cons.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, that's the thing about it. And, especially with are people with Switch Lites experiencing the same drift? Because I think it had something to do with the way that they build the joystick itself and not just the Joy-Con.
Yeah, the Switch Lite was added into the free repair as soon as it was within a month of launching, I think. And the problem is that the joysticks are not airtight, so dust and stuff gets down in there, and some mechanical components are wearing out faster than they should be.
I'm ignorant, I'll admit, but would that not just be like a simple manufacturing fix to say, like, we're gonna add some sort of layer between these connection points to make it airtight so that dust can't get into it?
It seems that way, but I'm not a manufacturer either.
I wonder what the cost associated with that is.
I'm sure it's astronomical, but I'm sure it's probably lower than a lawsuit is gonna get them for. So, and the fact that, like, if this lawsuit sticks, they're not only going to have to pay a fine for it, but I'm sure that they'll have to address the issue itself.
Yep.
Like, you can't continue to sell the controller with these issues.
Stafidi says in the chat, plus a lot of people may not think about repairs, and controllers are expensive AF. And like, my personal feeling on this is that that's what Nintendo is banking on.
Yeah, it's a feature, not a bug, right?
Yeah.
like, oh, we don't want you to send your console in. We want you to just go buy new Joy-Cons. But it gets a little trickier with the Switch Lite when the solution is you got to buy a whole new freaking console in order for it to work. And not only do you have to buy a whole new console, but you can't migrate your saves over to this. And I've heard stories about people who've sent in their whole system to get the Joy-Con replaced, and then they get it back and it's been wiped, or like their save files have been corrupted and stuff. So it's a mess, and I am all for anything that, you know, is going to benefit the consumers. So I hope the UFC kicks their ass.
Yeah, I'm again thankful that I'm not able to kind of go out and about either. Like, I started having this issue recently with my Switch, and now I just don't even play it in handheld. I just play it on the TV, which is sad because I'd much rather be playing Hades in my bed. But I mean, the planned obsolescence thing has always been really frustrating to me, especially as a user of Apple products. It's not exactly a secret that iPhones are kind of prone to this in particular, I guess.
Well, they were actually sued and successfly sued.
Yeah, they were.
Over their planned obsolescence with their batteries.
Yeah, I still feel like it's an issue. But yeah, I'm glad that someone is actually glad. Is probably not the right word, but I think you're right, Larry. Nintendo does sometimes need a reminder that they can't just really do whatever they want. That sometimes someone will snap back at them. So, and unfortunately, I'm sure already too many people have just gone out and bought new controllers or kind of gone through the hassle of sending in their system only to have it completely wiped at this point. But something needs to change because clearly they haven't taken the initiative themselves.
Yep. All right, next story. BlizzCon, which was canceled this year, is now going to be an online event that takes place in February. This is from my old stomping grounds at Twinfinite, written by Tom Meyer. So Blizzard Entertainment announced, this was on the 21st, that its annual BlizzCon event will be returning as an online event in February 2021. And guys, I didn't put this story in here necessarily because I care particularly about BlizzCon. I mean, I like Overwatch, but outside of that, there's not much that happens there that I'm like glued to my television for. The World Cup, I guess, the Overwatch World Cup. I think what was more gut punching in this is seeing 2021 events already starting to plan themselves as online events. And for me, like, I recognize that this country is getting no better. In fact, we progressively are getting worse at our handling of the coronavirus. But, you know, the sentiment from a lot of people is like, can't wait for 2020 to be over, you know? And like, people have taken hope in that, even though we've been waiting for whatever year we're in to be over for the last 3 years, only for it to continue to spiral out of control. But
you want to fix it, I can save Harambe.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't think we're going to see any in-person states-based events in 2021.
No,
Me neither.
Very sad.
it is.
To add a cheerful, uplifting note, did you see the name of the conference?
No, wait, hold on.
Yes.
BlizzCon Line?
BlizzCon Line.
Online.
They reached out to me and said, hey, we need a lame dad joke of a name. And I was like, here you go.
You know, they got ready to put that press release out and they were like, oh shit, we didn't name this thing, guys. Anyone got any ideas? We got 6 minutes before our agencies are supposed to send this out.
Bob's just been saying this around the water cooler. He might as well use it.
How about BlizzCon Line? I mean, if nobody else has any ideas. Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Cody, your turn.
We're staying Blizzard adjacent here. The story comes courtesy of a number of sources, but this is Rob Zachney over at Vice. Mike Morhaime, known for his work at Blizzard, he's a ex-founder of the company and ex-president of the company. He announced that he's starting a new publisher called Dreamhaven. And with that announcement, he announced that 2 new studios will be under Dreamhaven's control: Moonshot and Secret Door, both of which will also be led by former Blizzard veterans. And so I'll just read a little bit here. Zachney loops in some notable context for this announcement in light of everything that's been going on at Blizzard as of late. Quote, ex-Blizzard founder and president Mike Morhaime announced that he has founded a new video game publishing company this morning, and that its first 2 studios would be led by other departed Blizzard executives and designers. While it's not yet known what they're working on, and having high-profile veterans founding new ventures is far from a proven recipe for success, the announcement at the very least proves that the waves of senior staff who departed Blizzard in recent years were fleeing the company itself, not retiring from making games, end quote. And so, yeah, what these studios will be working on is not known yet, but Moonshot is going to be led by veteran Blizzard designers Jason Chase, Dustin Browder, and Ben Thompson, and then Secret Door will be led by Chris Sagati, Alan Dabiri, and Eric Dodds, all of whom are also Blizzard alums. We talked quite a bit about Blizzard while we were still podcasting, especially everything going on last year with them. And I do not think that it's a coincidence that the name of the publisher is Dreamhaven, given what we've heard is going on at Activision Blizzard, and how kind of a lot of developers have left as of late due to what they feel is like a dramatic shift in vision in what Blizzard is doing because of what Activision kind of sees the studio doing. I'm excited to see what these studios are doing. We know next to nothing, and of course, as Zachney said, it's not proven that studios with this amount of talent will do something great, but it's an interesting wrinkle in the ongoing Blizzard saga.
Let's be honest, guys. Dreamhaven sounds like it was given to us by some sort of online video game company name generator, right? Like, yeah. It just sounds like the most generic video game company ever. But look, it's been no secret that Blizzard has been a difficult place for people to work with any kind of longevity. And I think it is an interesting note just to say, like, hey, a lot of guys who reach these heights in this industry just go and ride off into the sunset if they're just kind of disillusioned with the industry itself. But these are people who still have a vision and are motivated creatively to continue to work with this medium, who I'm sure if they have the means to start a new studio like this, I'm sure they have the means to go and do whatever it is that they want. So but this is kind of what we felt with Activision Blizzard over the last few years, is just like they have become imprisoned in their own established franchises, and they don't really function outside of those things. In fact, the portfolio of the IP that they're actively developing at any given time seems to be shrinking with time rather than expanding, and that they're not open to new ideas. Well, didn't we have a story last year about Activision getting pitched several different kinds of games from people who worked internally with them, and them just rejecting it because they just want to focus on Call of Duty?
Yeah.
So I imagine similar things are going on at, their parent company. Blizzard owns Activision, right? Not the other way around.
Pretty sure, yeah.
So,
Yes.
Not hard to see that, like, oh man, the company that's still doing, World of Warcraft and Hearthstone and Overwatch 2, and that's really all they're focusing on. Maybe not the best place for creative new ideas.
Yeah. Zachny correctly points out that all the issues at Blizzard are not due to their relationship with Activision. There have sort of been long-standing criticisms of Blizzard's approach to kind of racial politics and gender, despite what Overwatch pitches itself as, and some of that was started by people like, or some of that was kind of in projects that Morheim oversaw, and some of the people who were involved in these studios oversaw. It at least seems that Morheim is at least somewhat trying to address it in his statement. Zachny notes in his statement that when Morheim says in a statement that he wants to, quote, bring people together regardless of backgrounds or boundaries, the bar for accomplishing that is higher than it was when World of Warcraft exploded in popularity. So at least it seems as though their mission statement is at least somewhat seeking to remedy that. Whether or not that is put into practice is another thing, as we've seen. Yeah, I mean, it's good to see at least talented people in the industry not just completely disillusioned by their experience at the studio and then go off and do their own thing that will hopefully also be kind of creatively fulfilling. We've talked about so many stories on this podcast of just total burnout, whether it's due to crunch or whether it's due to working conditions at something like Blizzard. So it's great to see, I guess, a new creative endeavor come out of all of that, I guess I should say.
Yeah. All right. Next story. Cody, I believe we're sticking with you.
Yeah. This is a story I'm very excited about. Supergiant Games' new roguelite game, Hades, has sold 1 million copies, and that was of September 20th. I think it's climbed even higher with like a lot of the talk going on around this game. Hades is a game that I wasn't able to play actually until it came out on like the 1.0 release of it came out this past week. It's been out in early access for I think about 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years. And finally getting my hands on it personally has been really incredible. It's a great game. In a tweet from Supergiant Games, they noted that 700,000 of those 1 million copies sold were during early access, and so the remaining 300,000 were just since its official release. I haven't made it a secret that I am a massive fan of Supergiant Games. But to see them finally get the commercial success to go with the critical acclaim that a lot of their titles have had is amazing to see. It's a studio that's extremely talented, and regardless of what they put out, it's always interesting to say the least. And so I just wanted to include this in here. Go out and play Hades. I'm not paid to say this. It's genuinely a great game and one of my favorite games of the year. And to see it people actually respond to it as they have, and to see Supergiant Games be able to like actually take advantage of the early access format is also really awesome to see.
But again, I think this serves as another great example of just like how there's space to be lucratively successful in this like non-AAA space here. And you know, just to note the other titles that Supergiant's worked on with Pyre, which I know you absolutely loved back when we were at Two Left Sticks. I think you wrote about Pyre. Transistor, which is a much beloved game. Bastion, which I think both you and I really enjoyed. So, this is cool to see. I think the thing that's always really exciting about these kinds of stories is just how there's no way to pinpoint what the next big thing is going to be. I mean, Among Us is definitely like the classic example of that, right? Because it's a game that's been out for 2 years and then all of a sudden just explodes in popularity. But I don't feel like you see stories like this in really any other kind of media. Maybe music from time to time.
I'd say, yeah. Well, I was going to say just the Hades example is an interesting one because I had seen conversation bubbling up around it. Like people were really big fans of it in early access, but like that happened, like it started in early access so long ago. And so it was hard for me to really think of like when the game was out because it has been out technically for so long. And then like, obviously the coronation has been this past week when it officially released. I liken that to a lot of what a lot of TV has become as of late. I think probably most recently Schitt's Creek, which is like the latest example of a show getting the Netflix bump. Like that show had been on for a while before it came to Netflix, and then when it came to Netflix, like had a whole new avenue for people to discover it and a whole new way for people to access it in the first place.
That's funny. That's what my wife and her aunt are watching right now.
Yeah, I mean, it swept at the Emmys recently, so it's also had some sort of like a similar coronation. It's fun. It's like final state, similar to Hades. But yeah, it's unlike any other. I feel like this doesn't really happen that much in other mediums.
Yeah. Now, I want to try this. I'm not a big roguelite fan, but
I'm not either. You try it.
Try it? Okay. How much is it? I imagine it's what, $20, $30?
I got it. It's on sale for $20. I got it for 15 because they have that weird dumb credit system on Switch.
Yeah. I think I've got some Switch credits.
Yeah. But all I'll say is that I am not a fan of roguelike games. I do not like feeling like all the progress I made has been erased and having to start over again. But the way they incentivize you to continue playing narratively is extremely rewarding, and the story, more so than any other roguelite I've played, is extremely well done. Supergiant Games is a great studio when it comes to storytelling, but the way they manage to tell a story within that format is really well executed. Great voice acting, great writing, and if you're a fan of Greek mythology, it has a lot of really hot gods in it too.
Some hot gods. All right. We good to move on?
Yeah.
All right. Before we move on to Offbeat, I want to remind you, if you're watching over here on Twitch, that if you have Amazon Prime, you have Twitch Prime. And that if you don't give your Twitch Prime to a creator over here on Twitch, it goes directly to Jeff Bezos' alimony payments, and we don't want to help that guy out anymore. All right? So subscribe to us using your Twitch Prime, and we will love you forever. Unlike Jeff Bezos' ex-wife.
I mean, let's not feel too bad for the guy.
Or her. I mean, oh, it just came together.
Absolutely flame.
Let's make like Jeff Bezos' ex-wives and get out of here and move on.
All right, Offbeat. This is the section of the show where we talk about some of the news, the weird and strange goings on in the gaming industry. Larry, I threw one in that you decided to put in our Discord rather than in the show notes.
There was a question mark. I was asking if this was odd to you, but here it is. So
well, hold on. Before we move there real quick, let me just point out to you that you sent us the mobile version of this page like a total noob. All right, this is the AMP version, the accelerated mobile page, I think is what it stands for, AMP. So it looks weird. But continue.
Well, I was on a mobile device when I used my Discord to ask you.
Okay, well then I am more upset with GameSpot for using AMP rather than just having a fucking responsive design.
GameSpot, I just moved into web development, and if you need help implementing a responsive design, you can pay me to do that.
And of course, just removing AMP from the URL doesn't change it either. Great. All right, go ahead.
Anyway, I'm mostly drawing from an article called Bethesda boss Todd Howard has 1,000 gamer point Xbox achievement no one else can unlock by James O'Connor on GameSpot.com. And it's not a complicated story. It was just pretty neat. So, Todd Howard won a Lifetime Achievement Award. During the acceptance of that award, he joked, wondering how many gamer points that achievement was worth. And so Microsoft reached out to him and tied a game to his account alone. And when he logged onto the game, it gave him an achievement, Lifetime Achievement Award. And so I just thought it was neat. Nice little thing Microsoft did. And I also thought it was neat because let's just acknowledge that this was Microsoft courting Todd Howard for this Bethesda deal.
It was way back.
It just kind of sucks that a lifetime of achievement is only worth 1,000 gamer score.
I know. I was gonna say.
Which I guess is 1,000. What's the highest you can get? Isn't there? I think there's.
I'm not an achievement hunter.
I'm not either, but I know there's like an equivalent to a platinum trophy in Xbox gamer score. But yeah, it kind of makes me just want to stop. Like if all you get out of life is 1,000 gamer score, then why am I even trying at this point?
Right. What's it? He says in Dodgeball, I find that if I don't set goals for myself, I'm never disappointed when I fail to accomplish them.
What do you guys think the highest gamer score yielding achievement you've accomplished in your life has been? And how much gamer score do you think it's worth? Putting it into perspective that all of Todd Howard's life is only worth 1,000.
On a scale of 0 to 1,000, 1,000 being the highest.
Exactly. What is the achievement and how much gamer score did you unlock? I'm springing this on you.
I don't know if I've ever done.
I don't know if I've ever done anything noteworthy.
I mean, yeah.
In chat, you can feel free to answer this, and if you're watching, you can feel free to answer it in the comments as well. But I'm just interested if Microsoft sent you a game attached solely to your profile, and you starting it unlocked an achievement that was indicative of the greatest achievement of your life, what would pop?
I've been married for a decade. I feel like that's pretty solid. That's worth like 10 gamer points at least.
1 point per year. How long was Jeff Bezos married for?
Well, I mean, how long was what's his face here, Todd Howard, working in the games industry?
Jeff Bezos would have had a 25-point gamer score from his marriage. He made it 25 years with his ex-wife. So, all right. Well, marriage, it's all right. Cody, how about you?
I don't have marriage. I got a master's degree. What is that worth?
I don't know. You tell us how much. You tell us how much your student loan payments are.
I don't have student loans.
What?
My parents worked at the university.
Oh, that's right.
I didn't have to pay for tuition.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah. Well, we'll give you 5 gamer score for that.
I'll take that.
Yeah, I once ate a 5-pound burrito at a place called Sweet Peas Barbecue.
That place, incredible.
But yeah, they had a 5-pound burrito.
That's the place with the bacon chocolate chip cookies, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right there on the water in Knoxville.
How many points do they get?
I don't know. You guys tell me, how much does eating a 5-pound burrito yield? Like, I feel like I feel like I'd kind of be shitting on both your degree and Larry's marriage if I was to say 50 gamer score like I thought it was going to be worth.
On my degree.
But
especially after eating a 5-pound burrito.
So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give myself 50 gamer score for that. As many Big Boy Roy says as many calories as it was. Well, then I've done more than Todd Howard has done in his entire life. Then, all right, because there's
your burrito is worth 5 decades of marriage.
Dude, if a 5-pound burrito was 5,000. Oh, you're saying with my score? I thought you were saying calorie wise. I was like, that would mean it was only 500 calories. It's 100 calories per pound of burrito. We're doing a lot of math here on the podcast here at the end of it. So, all right, great fun, guys. Let's wrap things up here. Congratulations, Todd Howard. Way to have a lifetime of achievement. How old's Todd? Todd Howard's got to be in what, his 50s? Hold on.
Let's look it up.
Let's check it out. How old is Todd Howard?
Do you think he still brags about this achievement?
How long ago was this? He's only 49 years old.
Got a baby face.
He's only 49 years old and he's already achieved a lifetime's worth of stuff. Like, does he just stop at this point?
He's also only 5'6".
Is he?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sorry, calling Todd out.
Yeah, this post was in this comment on his award was from his announcement on Bethesda's website about the Xbox acquisition. So, yes, he still talks about it.
Yeah. Well, I hope when I'm 49, I've achieved everything I'm going to in my life and can just live sedentary for the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Well, let's wrap it up. If you're hanging out with us in chat, though, feel free to stick around for the after party lounge where you guys will get to decide the future of this show. So let's get out of here. Who are you? Where can people find you? And what will you be tweeting about this week, Larry?
I'm Larry. You can find me on Twitter at StillInFlux, and I guess I'll be tweeting about whatever I'm about to learn about the future of this show.
All right. Codstone Creamery.
Ooh.
You like that?
Damn. I do like
I
that.
like that.
That's smooth, just like Cold Stone Creamery.
I've never been to a Cold Stone.
That's pretty good.
That may be another achievement in my life.
Never
I've never been to a Cold Stone. 10, it's worth as much as Larry's marriage. 10 gamer
I don't
score.
think you get an achievement for not doing something. I'm Cody. You can find me on Twitter at ProElectioneer. I'll be tweeting about searching for that perfect run in Hades. Still angling for it.
Nice.
Also, there's a Mirror's Edge achievement for not using a gun, you liar.
There you go.
Not a real game.
Counterpoint. My name is Luke
Larry
Croft.
quits.
Yeah, he's leaving. My name's Luke Croft. You can find me on Twitter at itishoagie, and I think I'm just going to start associating a gamer score with all of the things that I do in life and tweeting about what I've just unlocked.
Larry has legitimately left the room.
What if the pumpkin just started talking at this point?
I mean,
that'd be so cool. Now, I'm interested in, this is not interesting for anybody that's listening, but I was thinking it would take him a lot more steps to get back. I still have no idea how big this room is, despite the fact that I think I've been in it. So, all right, well, we're going to get out of here, guys. Like I said, stick around if you're hanging out in the after party lounge. This has been PvA Radio over here on twitch.tv/itishoagie every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Check us out everywhere else, wherever you're listening to us. Thank you, and we love you. And until next time, goodbye.
Why, that's the second biggest monkey head I've ever seen.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
The definition of insanity.
Would you kindly pick up that shot?